What's going on, guys? My name is Tommy. Welcome back to the channel. It's time for another episode of Min-Maxing for Fun and Profit in 2nd edition. And yes, I see you. I know we talked about going from 1st edition to 2nd edition back and forth. We're going to do that. There's just a lot of exciting new in 2nd edition right now, and I want to be on that hype train. Drifters. That's the class we're looking at this week on Min-Maxing for Fun and Profit. It's big, it's scary, it works a lot differently than I thought it would. It's memey, dare I say? There's also a cat standing outside my door screaming full bore. So remember, like, subscribe, and support us on Patreon to make sure that I can give my small cat friend the best life, the life he deserves. And there's a Google Sheet for this one too, of course, for patrons at any tier. Now, let's dive in. Alrighty, so the Drifter is, on paper, the more martial-focused of the three gunslinger ways that exist presently. Unlike the Sniper, who wants to not be seen and then you can't see anyone because you're dead. Or the Pistolero, which I'm not sure how I feel about yet. We'll have to dive into that one more clearly. The Drifter is meant to be able to shoot with one hand and have some kind of one-handed weapon in the other for stabbing. Its deeds are built very good for that. The initial one, Into the Fray, when you roll for initiative, you can interact to draw a ranged weapon and then interact to draw a one-handed melee weapon, as well as stride towards an enemy for free as your first action on your next turn. Close the gap, get in the first range increment, get in the flank, have the extra action economy. 2-for-1ing with rebounding assault smells like double slice, and that's pretty cool. Especially because you get an extra d6 of precision damage tied in there. Drifter's Wake, of course, allows you to spring attack your way across the battlefield, firing lead all over the place. But there's a couple of things within the bounds of this class that I think we're missing. First and foremost, a very clear way outside from a class feat with the flourish trait, meaning you can do it once around. There's not a great way to reload a firearm if you are also holding a sword in your other hand. There are several ways to work around this, of course, up to and including some things that are built in-house, but all of them are kind of feels bad in that vein because you have to burn a class feat to get that ability, which feels very necessary blue feat-y, like 3.5 and 1E feats would, like rapid reload, which you would just have to have as a crossbowman or gunslinger to function. How are we going to get around this, you ask? Well, we've been talking about this for a while with crossbowmen. It stands to reason that it works here too. We are going to grab ourselves a familiar to help us do a lot of our reloading. With the manual dexterity ability, it could use up to 2 of its limbs as if they were hands to perform manipulate actions. And the independent trait in an encounter, if you don't command your familiar, it still gains 1 action each round. Typically, you decide how it spends that action, but the GM might decide that your familiar chooses its own actions rather than performing your preferred action. So, like, if your GM wants to be rude and your little whatever the heck it is you grab, spoiler alert, it's going to be a rat for us, you'll see why, crawls into the barrel of the gun and says, "Nah, fam, I live here now," then that sucks and that's shitty. And 2 thumbs way down for that. But getting a familiar to do this means we're spending, in our case, a single ancestry feat to pull this off, leaving our class feats to take other things that we want to take rather than staples that we must have to thrive. I guess also on that note, I think my favorite thing about the familiars of 2nd edition is that they essentially allow you to make a bestiary entry. Suddenly, I have a rat who is smart, who has 2 limbs that it can use as if it were hands. In this case, I'm gonna say like its tail plus a second tail that it can grow, I suppose. No weirder than giving it a fly speed, right? Or like it picks up the shot with its teeth or one of its little hands. Point is, it's incredibly unique. And no, we're not gonna stop and ask exactly how the little guy can figure out how all of this stuff works. Suspend your disbelief, kids, it's high fantasy, even though there's technology in it. But to be clear, manual dexterity for manipulate actions means we can, in fact, interact for 1 action to reload a firearm for our best friend, the Drifter. This means our familiar can also use an interact action to clear the jam should our firearm misfire, so we don't burn as much action economy just getting back up to running. Secondly, and yeah, sure, technically we could do a true sword and pistol thing. My guess is my thoughts about this build in 2E proper will be much, much different than they are here. But I think one of the things I'm the most sad that we are lacking right now truly is a bayonet. Whether that be a plug bayonet that prevents a firearm from firing because you jammed a cork in the barrel that has a sharp pointy on the end, or moving forward a little bit to a ring bayonet that does not interrupt the firearm's ability to shoot things, but still gives you that stabbing option. It just makes me kind of sad, you know? We are going to get around this in our dual pistol drifter build, of all the things, with the weapon improviser dedication. Yeah, you heard that right. Pistol whipping is a whole mood here. I think it's very reasonable to treat a pistol as though it were a club when you're swinging it around with an improvised weapon. This will also allow us to dual wield pistols for more shots necessary if, like, the familiar is dead and action economy is not in your favor before you must reload. And on top of that, by taking weapon improviser and using rebounding assault, let's go over that one more time, kids. For 2 actions, you're wielding both a loaded firearm or crossbow and a one-handed melee weapon, check and check, because indeed an improvised weapon is a simple weapon. You hurl your melee weapon at an opponent, then fire a projectile into the weapon, causing it to deal additional damage and bounce back into your grasp. Some fucking how. And like, we were almost a gnome. I feel like I made a missed meme opportunity here, but just more on that in a second. You huck a pistol at a dude, hit a dude with a pistol, the pistol then fires, the bullet then hits not the dude, but the gun, putting the force of the bullet into the gun and then into the dude, which then causes the gun to rebound off the dude and into the hand of you. You either die a casual or you live long enough to become this. I fucking love my job. Anyway, for today's ancestry, truly the Isoki will be what we are playing today. Follow this card if you don't know what the heck that is. We came very close to playing a gnome today. The goal here was just to play an ancestry that had a familiar to help us do all of our shenanigans. The Isoki's buff to Dex just comes out a little better because that is the stat we are using the most. Since we will be certainly hitting people with our strength, we'll need to buy off that strength flaw. Choose a background that gives you access to strength or dex. We'll begin play with starting ability scores of strength 14, dex 18, con 12, int 12, wiz 12, cha 10. Let's hit some class feats. Sword and pistol is first, and I suppose technically you will want to carry around a sword for all of one level to make this pan out. When you make a successful ranged strike against an opponent within your melee reach using a firearm or crossbow, that opponent becomes flat-footed against your next melee attack. When you successfully strike an opponent with a melee weapon, the next ranged strike you make against that opponent doesn't trigger reaction, so it would trigger on a ranged attack but not a melee attack, like Attack of Opportunity. This lasts until the end of your next turn. This is a passive, this costs no actions, this is dope as fuck. We'll then take the Weapon Improviser dedication at level 2, so we don't take the -2 penalty to attack rolls with improvised weapons, and so our ability to pistol whip a dude keeps going up. We literally will land at legendary with improvised weapons because we become legendary with guns, and so fast too. I missed that when we did the first reveal video. I was looking at the bottom of the class table like, 17th legendary? Nope, not at all. Literally, we're better than the dude with the sword and pistol because we're the pistol and pistol. What more do you want? I have no idea. Assisting shot, 1 action, has the press trait. Make a strike with a firearm or crossbow. Should it hit the next creature other than you to attack the same target before the start of your next turn, gains a +1 circumstance bonus to their roll, or a +2 circumstance bonus if your strike was a critical hit. Now, here's where my brain starts to hurt a little. If I pistol whip a dude, have I made a strike with a firearm? Or have I made a strike with an improvised weapon that runs into a very, very fucky raw versus raw argument? In the comments below. If I pistol whip a dude, can assisting shot proc? I kinda hope so, because they would be flat-footed. If I were to, say, shoot, stride, assisting shot, then buff out everybody else's ability to just tear into them. But even if not, that's still really good. Now, we will be taking reloading strike at level 6. This requires us to wield a firearm or crossbow, and our other hand either wields a one-handed melee weapon or is empty. We technically have done that with weapon improvising. It's cheesy as fuck, but we also could build something much higher up the tier list than this, so I'm willing to give it a pass. For one action, you attack and then reload your gun. You don't need a free hand to do this. This, again, is still very, very taxy, but our familiar might not necessarily have the best action economy to keep our guns loaded if we are just spraying down range. If we make 3 actions to strike, 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 our familiar on its own can reload once. So we would be strike, strike, reload, strike, and have 2 empty firearms at the end of the turn. With this, strike, strike, familiar reloads, assuming it's in melee range, attack it, then reloading strike. We still get 3 attacks in, but then start the next turn with 2 loaded firearms. Next, for even more memes, surprise strike. Whenever you make a strike with an improvised weapon against a creature that hasn't seen you make a strike using an improvised weapon, or a new creature essentially, or that is otherwise ignorant with your skill with improvised weapons, the creature is flat-footed against you for that strike. They never see it coming. You jam the melee button, you bop them with the gun, they go down. Very good. Also, in universes where, and like this conversation could very easily go into the realm of toxic GMs. That's not what I'm trying to do here. But in a world where you are disarmed before you go into town, but you know damn well you're going to get into a fight, having feats like these mean you can grab a chair and brain a dude with that chair and still have quite a bit of value out of it. We will also be taking Firearm Ace on the Ancestry feat side. Our particular Isoki will take Adopted Ancestry for humans for a couple reasons. One of them being Natural Ambition for Firearm Ace. When you're wielding a firearm and then interact to reload it, you gain a +2 circumstance bonus to the damage roll on your next strike with that firearm. If the firearm is simple, increase the damage dice for that attack by 1 step. Oh wowie, now our flintlock pistol is now shooting d6s at people, which is, as many people have said, dope. At level 9, we'll also be grabbing the multi-talented Ancestry feat for a rogue dedication. Now, I secretly hope that this particular thing gets eroded at some point, so it's not just multi-class archetype feats, and it includes all of them because there's so damn many. And when I first made this build, this is definitely where I'd put dual weapon warrior before, and that still looks really good here, I'm not gonna lie. But there's just so much good stuff that we still need to take within the gunslinger itself that it became awkward to grab another weapon improviser class feat. This seems just net better. Out the gate, we'll grab Sneak Attacker to add a d6 precision damage, and since we make them flat-footed sometimes, that's pretty cool. Followed immediately by Twin Feint. For 2 actions, make 1 strike with each of your 2 melee weapons, both against the same target. The target is automatically flat-footed against the second attack. Apply the map normally. For when it's the bottom of the 9th and you just really need to close it out by throwing down your sneak attack damage or crit fishing with your club. Dance of Thunder at level 14, because holy crap is why. I can, for 3 actions, step, strike within my firearm's first range increment. Note how that doesn't say ranged attack, or attack with a firearm. This could end up as step to a guy, bonk him, reload the gun you needed to reload, second round, bonk again. Oh, I got him. Step towards somebody else, reload the other gun, then make another attack at somebody farther away after stepping closer to them with the 3rd round. It's just dumb. It's just dumb. Hair Trigger is next, so you get that free shot off. By level 16, I'm pretty sure you're starting most encounters with your firearm drawn. Twin Distraction next, when using Twin Fate. If both strikes deal damage, it's a will save or they become Stupefied 1 until the end of your next turn. Pretty good to hit casters with, pretty good to support your casters. Get by with a little help from our friends. Then Perfect Readiness, because who doesn't want an extra step or interact to reload the gun? For our Ancestry feats, of course, out the gate, Rat Familiar to help us with our action economy, then Natural Ambition for a little bit of damage, and Multi-Talented for rogue stuff, like I said. Warren Digger at level 13 is hilarious. A burrow speed of 15 feet looks pretty darn strong for the skirmisher. As long as you've got dirt underneath you, you can just duck under, move, pop somewhere else out, shoot, keep them guessing as they frantically chase after you trying to play whack-a-mole, thus ignoring like the wizard and the witch or they have a clear line to someone else because you're underground, leaving you unimpeded to put a bunch of hot lead into their back. Heroic presence, lastly, for a free zealous conviction, for 10 willing creatures within 30 feet, once per day, or 12 temporary HP, a +2 status bonus to will saves against mental effects, or mostly just keeping folks alive. General feats its adopted ancestry choosing humans, incredible initiative for gotta go fast, toughness and die hard to be tough and not die, then canny acumen choosing will. So yeah, this actually, and I know I keep saying this, and I know I keep saying that I know I keep saying this, it's a weird, vicious frickin' cycle, but I really enjoy the way this build looks as I put it out, and I think it would be a lot of fun to play. By virtue of having a familiar which a lot of times will look like a creature you can find kinda everywhere, you have a scout. You have someone who can go find things and then report back, and presumably, short of a small army of cats waiting to ambush them, come back to tell the tale. You have someone you could very easily leave in the ruins of an old building you suspect cultists are meeting in, an old abandoned fort that bandits have taken over, and other things as well. And it also has combat utility in a very unique way. To say nothing of the fact that we are now wielding a melee and ranged weapon in both hands, or like a weird not thrown weapon that sometimes is thrown weapons, as my brain divides about that again. In fairness, I didn't see that one first. One of my patrons saw it and put it in our channel. Mahogany, you're beautiful. Thank you for that mental image. God, I can't even say that with a straight face. Once again, though I'm not intentionally doing it now, this is a character that has a lot of options. Melee attacks, ranged attacks, attacks with random things laying around. We're strength-based, and we're legendary with the weapons we're swinging, so like, pick up a broom handle. Now this is some kind of spear. Pick up a fence post. This is now a short sword. Pick up a mug. This is now a blessing from Caden Kalian to nuke somebody with that mug. So on and so forth. This literally is limited by your own creativity. As someone who just did a bar fight in Fallout Plaguestone, kinda wish I would have thought about it a little more to have more options, but as the player, you're not constantly analyzing 12 stat blocks in round by round calculations. You can just, hey, DM, what's around me? That, okay, dope. And then you pick it up. Figure out the closest approximation to a weapon that it looks like, and then bash somebody with it. I kind of want to do this on an archer too, I'm not gonna lie. Do that like empty quiver style shenanigans where sometimes you're shooting folks and sometimes you're just whapping them in the side of the head with a longbow. This looks really fun, but what do y'all think? Have we built this up? Have we played weapon improvisers? How do we feel about the gunslinger? Put it in the comments next week. Well, fun fact, next week I'm going to take a week off from min-maxing for fun and profit. Several of my clients already know. I'll go ahead and say it here now too. I was very recently given a license for a very dope looking virtual tabletop known as Foundry. I would really like to get to learn how to do this. It very much seems like the virtual tabletop made for people who love virtual tabletops. Hey, it's me. But since the schedule is just so jam-packed right now, it's hard to find that time. So we're going to take a half self-care week and I'm going to play around with that. After that, we'll be back with more min-maxing for fun and profit though. So as always, thank you all so much. We'll see you next time.